appreciate it so much. It has been a blessing. And David is right about my view from my new office in the Russell building. I've been there now for about a week. And I tell you, even though my window, you look directly out the window, you see a grand retaining wall. And if you look up, there's a grate and some bushes. And you look up even further, I can't see that tree. But I tell you, that's the most spectacular view, because I know that I'm in the United States Senate, and I know that I can make a difference. So, thank you. Thank you. It is great to be here at the Northeast Republican Leadership Conference. I appreciate the invitation to come out and visit with all of you. This is a lot of fun when I get to meet a lot of different folks from different states, but we all share those common goals, and that is to get these great United States back on the right track. So it's such an opportunity for me to be with you and share some thoughts and ideas. I wanted to take a minute too and make sure I say some thank yous. Our Pennsylvania Republican Party Chairman, Rob Gleason, thank you so much, sir, for all the work that you do. National Committee woman, Christine Peretti. Christine and I go back several years now. She is very helpful. Just the great advice that she was able to give throughout my campaign. So thank you, Christine. And then National Committeeman Bob Asher. I really want to thank all of you for having me here and all the hard work that you do, because you do put in some long hours making sure that all of you are able to make a difference. David had mentioned that he had called from GOPAC with the endorsement. And I do want to say that GOPAC is one of the first conservative organizations to endorse me in my race for United States Senate. And I think they did a pretty good job. I hope others think that too. But I was so glad to have that endorsement. Now, GOPAC's mission is really to educate that next group of leaders as they advance on to federal office. They are working with, like you said, local leaders, state leaders, and so forth, and we're teaching them the right things, educating them about the conservative values that we believe in, and great ways to find solutions. And then I tell you, the statistics are amazing, and how many former state and local folks, elected representatives that we have now serving in the federal government. It is amazing, because when you've been at that level, you know how to balance a budget, you know how to work with other people. It is going to make a difference when you move on to that next step. So GOPAC support has been so very valuable to me, and many of you as well. They've worked to prepare state leaders, of course, to run for those higher offices, and they invest early, like they did in my race. They came in very early, before probably many other organizations really knew who I was. But they knew of my work when I was a county auditor back in Montgomery County, Iowa. And they knew, yes, they knew of my work when I was at the state senate. And I tell you, GOPAC, they used to send out, how many of you used to receive those little CDs that they would send in the mail? I used to get those and listen to those. I had a 2-hour drive from my home up to the state capitol. And I'd pop those little CDs from GOPAC. And yeah, CDs. Maybe we don't listen to those anymore. But I put the CDs in my car, and I would listen to those, and the great speakers that they had, and I learned so much from that. So it's been wonderful. But anyway, I talk often about my roots and where I came from. And many of you maybe grew up in a rural setting, and sometimes it can be quite challenging. And I have said over and over again that it is a long way, a very long way from Red Oak, Iowa to Washington, D.C. Now, I grew up in a family that had very little, grew up on a very small farm, and my parents were not politically connected at all. So this was something new to me as I grew up and started engaging in political activities. But GOPAC and other organizations like GOPAC really led the way and helped form some of those ideas. But it all started back in the home. And my parents taught me when I was growing up, they instilled in me service and sacrifice, and that value of $1. And you can't spend more than you take in. So those are the things that I took with me. Now I do want to talk a little bit about service and sacrifice, because it was a long way from Greta to Washington, D.C., but long before that, it was a long way from Greta to Iraq. And I am a 23-year veteran between the reserves and the Iowa Army National Guard. Thank you so much, and I really do appreciate that. I still serve in the Iowa Army National Guard, and I left my battalion command last fall after I was elected to the United States Senate, after serving at that time about 22 and a half years, and truly love my soldiers. And I love that service that I've been able to give back to the United States. That was just one way that I could serve. Now, many years ago, when I was a young captain, I was a company commander, I was called up and I was notified that my unit was being mobilized for Operation Iraqi Freedom. I was a transportation company commander. And again, I had to really pull the troops together. We got ready. We came from 3 separate locations in Iowa. We had 3 different armories. We mobilized and we headed out to Iraq in April of 2003. And we spent a year overseas. And it was a very long year overseas, but my soldiers, all good, hard-working Midwestern Iowa farm girls and guys, and they did a great job for me. But knowing how to lead and have that leadership ability, even when times got tough, was really important. And I'll give an example, how to adapt and be tough and make the mission happen. When we first got our first mission, we were permanently stationed in Kuwait, and we drove missions throughout Kuwait and southern Iraq. The first mission that we got was a mission up into Iraq. And it was so early in the war, and it was complete chaos. My battalion headquarters didn't have maps that they could provide to me. No maps. We're a transportation unit. We need to know how to get from point A to point B. So what I did, I went over to the next camp where there was a Tennessee transportation unit. They were National Guard. And their company commander had made that trip several times. So he came back and he sat down with me and my first sergeant and some of our platoon leaders, platoon sergeants. He hand drew a map on a piece of paper and said, "Here you go." And that's what he was operating off of, and his company had done pretty well. But that's what we used when we first went into Iraq, was that hand-drawn map. And I tell you, a little bit scary, but with leadership, good, solid leadership, and a lot of trust that our soldiers knew the right thing to do, and we get there okay. That's what we used. We got up there, we got back, we did just fine, and the rest of the year we moved successfully throughout the region, and we all came home, 150 soldiers strong. So, of all